All right, good evening, everybody. It is 6:01. This is our Tuesday, January 9th, regular board meeting for the Town of Spencer Board of Aldermen. And with that, we are officially called to order. We do have all of our board members, except for Mr. Miller, present here this evening. Alderman Muhammad will be giving our invocation this evening.
Let us pray. Lord, we come to you with a clear heart and mind, knowing that you will guide us and prepare us for what we're planning to do for this great town of Spencer and its residents. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, board, you have before you your agenda this evening. There is a request from staff to add one additional item, and that is consideration of adopting Resolution 24-04, endorsing the Cabarrus-Rowan MPO CTP amendment request. And so, if you will, please look at your agenda. If you're comfortable adding that to the agenda this evening, I would suggest that we go ahead and add that as item 8, right after our consent agenda items. Board in agreement? Mm-hmm. All right. Any other additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda this evening? Or anything on the consent agenda that you wish to pull for further discussion tonight? All right. Hearing none. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
There's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right. All opposed? And the agenda is set for tonight. All right. So we do have some guests in the audience tonight, and we appreciate you being with us. We have one very, very important recognition to make tonight, and that is for our Winterfest committee and all of the volunteers that came and helped out, not just for the event, but in the months leading up to the event. We had some refreshments beforehand this evening, and we want to take an opportunity as a board to thank the Winterfest committee, specifically Kim Lentz, the chair of the committee, and all of her wonderful group of volunteers. It takes a lot of people every year to make our Winterfest such a success, and we're very, very grateful for the time, the energy, and the commitment to Spencer that everyone put in, whether it be from helping arrange vendors to planning entertainment, to working the skating rink, to helping take out the trash during the events. It takes a team effort to do that, and we are so very, very grateful for all of the folks, those that could be here tonight and those that could not as well. Also want to thank our staff as well. They are a huge help, particularly Joel Taylor and our Public Works crew, as well as our fire and police departments, and then all of our staff that have helped out. It truly is a public-private partnership to make this work, and we've had 3 very, very successful years, and we're looking forward to many, many more to come. Peter, anything you want to add?
I think you said it very well, Mayor.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. And again, thank you for all of the help, all of the effort, and all of the blood, sweat, and tears. We know a lot goes into it. And we've got a few board members that were very, very instrumental as well. So Alderwoman Sledge and Mayor Pro Tem, thank you very, very much. Mr. Miller, thank you as well. All right. Any other recognitions from the board this evening? All right, hearing none, we will move to public comment. And we did have a sign-up sheet. We have one individual signed up for public comment. Again, public comment is limited to 3 minutes. We will have a timer for you. And when you come up, if you will state your name and address for the record. And our individual that has signed up is Mr. Carl Martin.
Now, was this for open totally or?
Yes, this is just open public comment tonight.
Well, still here, in, wanting the city to change their mind, think about, or, think about the community of Hawkinstown. I'm, representing Hawkinstown CDC, which is, a group that we put together, and, we're just against, that many houses, that many townhouses put in such a close proximity to regular residential, and would like you to rethink it and possibly back it up even to residential houses as opposed to that many people coming in. And one of the major reasons is we've had a couple of houses in the area that are burned down simply because they didn't have enough fire protection, and we don't have any police protection in the area. So, you know, for fire and police in that area, if we're hoping that not having as many people would make a difference as opposed to having quite a number and us not be able to live comfortable and not being able to have fire protection and police protection. And I just want you to think about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. All right. Have we received any written correspondence for public comment?
No, sir, we have not.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. With that, we will move on to our consent agenda. And board, your consent agenda is before you. Is there any further discussion on that? And if not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So,
Motion by Mr. Muhammad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And the consent agenda is approved for tonight. All right, the next item is the item that we added, and that is to consider adopting Resolution 24-04 to endorse the CRNPO CTP amendment request. I'm going to ask Mr. Blunt to come forward, and first of all, make sure everyone is aware what that acronym stands for.
It's the Cabarrus Rowan County Metropolitan Planning Organization. And then the CTP is the Comprehensive Transportation Plan.
Thank you, sir.
Was that a test? You were trying to catch me or something?
It was. We have people that that ask for us to avoid acronyms at all costs.
I totally agree with that
Thank
concept. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this was a last minute addition because staff met with the staff of NCDOT and our MPO representative during the week, and in our ongoing effort to try to get an access road from Longs Ferry Road up to Hackett Street to open up about 300 acres of property for commercial and industrial development, the Area 9 chief engineer suggested that we need to get that little line on their map. And we certainly want to do that. And then they said, you know what, if we do it just right timing wise, we could get it added on this month. So we jumped to do it. I'm going to give you a very quick, brief presentation for our new board member to see what in the world we're talking about. Turned on its side here is the CTP map, and all those lines, and I'll actually give you a little better view of it there. All those lines, some dotted, some solid, are basically a 20-year picture of the transportation needs as far as improvements and additions of roads in Rowan County and Cabarrus County. And that little dotted line that I've circled there is the access road that we're trying to get built from Longs Ferry Road up to Hackett Street. That on a GPS map shows you what that road would look like. And the reason we need that road is that when the state started closing railroad crossings, they closed the Hackett Street access on the west end. And then when they relocated I-85, they closed the connection to Willow Creek on the east end. And all of a sudden, there was really no access to that 300 acres of property that is prime property for commercial industrial development. So we've been working with private developers, private property owners, trying to find a way to make this road happen. We continue to work on that. It has been suggested that by getting it on the CTP map, we can use that to help us in our pursuit of grant money to build this road. It was also mentioned in the recently adopted Longs Ferry Road corridor study, a traffic study that showed a dramatic increase in traffic on Longs Ferry due to development pressures. And right there in that circle that I added is this intersection at Longs Ferry Road where this new access road would start. It would also involve a realignment of Montclair, which is that road to the south of Longs Ferry, and a rejiggering of the connection to Hinkle, which is now the current front door access to Innispec. So that's what the road looks like. It's about a mile's worth of road. Long ago, I was taught that a mile of two-lane road was $1 million a mile. So when we first started this project, we were looking for $1 million to make that work. And then DOT in their wisdom told us we would need turn lanes and signals and things of that nature on Longs Ferry. And the estimated cost now has gone from $1 million to $1.5 million, $2 million, $3 million. We're not exactly sure, but certainly more than the initial $1 million request. That's why we are having to pursue various grants to pay for this, along with the developer helping out to make this a reality. Again, turned on its side so we could squeeze it all in one slide, but the black line running top to bottom is Longs Ferry, and then the yellow line would be the new access road intersection at Longs Ferry, and would in all likelihood have turn lanes and signals at that intersection. In addition to serving all that property north of there, it would also improve the traffic movements from the truck stop, which is shown on the left, the Johnson Development Distribution Center, which is shown at the top, and a retail development that is shown in blue. I don't have a site plan for that yet, but that's in the works. So we feel like this is an important issue for economic development in Spencer and northern Rowan County. What we are asking of you tonight is to actually approve the resolution that's in your package. This will go to the MPO, first through me to the TCC, then through Mr. Miller to the TAC, I believe it is. And then that recommendation will go on to NCDOT to add it to the map if everybody agrees to it. So this is what it would result in. This is the developer's preliminary site plan. And all those little boxes are roughly 200,000 square foot industrial buildings. So that's the kind of importance that this little 1 mile length of road carries with it. In addition to that, it would provide access, better access to Innispec, which has told us in meetings that their corporate board has approved somewhere between $50 and $75 million worth of money for capital improvements to that site. And they need a better road to bring trucks in and out. So I'll be glad to answer any questions or ask you to approve that resolution.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blunt. Board, are there any questions with this resolution tonight? We've heard lots about this access road over the last year or so. So this is a step in a positive direction for getting funding.
Right.
All right, hearing no questions, is there a motion to adopt resolution 24-04?
I make a motion that we adopt this resolution.
Okay, is there a motion by Mr. Miller? Is there a second? Second by Ms. Sledge. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved. Thank you all. All right, the next item is to consider adopting resolution 24-02, authorizing the town manager to execute a memorandum of agreement with the North Carolina League of Municipalities for the League's Municipal Accounting Services and Cybersecurity Grant and the Guidance and Technical Assistance Grant. Mr. Francis.
Thank you very much, Mayor and members of the board. This is a resolution that would allow us to move forward with what the league is calling their ARP service line. They and there's quite a bit of information in your packet about their overall program, but the league has put together a variety of resources using some of their ARP funding to provide financial software grant writing assistance, legal assistance, engineering assistance, a variety of types of services to local governments across the state. And we're recommending at this point in proceeding with two of the provided services, one being a cybersecurity assessment and grant program, and then also a program of grant writing assistance and funding assistance from the league's contracted consultants. And so that is the basics of it, but it's an opportunity that presents itself really at no cost to the town. There's certain limits on the amount of, for example, with the grant writing, they have $30,000 worth of services that they're willing to provide for the grant writing. Some of the other programs don't necessarily have the hard limits in place, but this is something that staff, after reviewing with the league, feels positively about, that it would be of assistance to the town. We're continuing to explore some of the other offerings, including the municipal accounting software, but we've yet to determine that we want to move forward with that one. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Franzese. Board, any questions? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 24-02?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Muhammad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Moody. Any further discussion?
You good?
All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is also approved. Thank you all. And now the next item is Resolution 24-03, which is a town purchasing policy. Mr. Franzese.
Thank you. And with that, I will ask Heather Can and Ryan Ledbetter to come forward. They've got a presentation for you to let you know about something we're very excited about, and something that's been in the works or it has been a need for a while. But this is a project that Ryan has taken on in his work, his service with us through the Lead from North Carolina program, and worked closely with Heather and our other staff members to put together the draft before you. So take it away.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
So the procurement policy actually encompasses three policies: the purchasing policy, procurement card policy, and the travel policy. I'm going to touch on some highlights of the purchasing policy, and Heather's going to follow up with that, kind of getting more into the details of the purchasing policy, especially how it deals with compliance. And then after that, I'm going to speak about some of the main components of the procurement card policy and then the travel policy. So the purchasing policy draws pretty heavily from North Carolina general statutes in regard to proper practices, particularly in regard to conflict of interest, bidding requirements, and purchasing thresholds, kind of just spelling out the requirements in terms of avoiding any appearance of impropriety in terms of conflict of interest. And then for bidding requirements and purchasing thresholds, those change depending upon the dollar amounts of the contracts and the type of contract as well. Purchasing, construction, and architectural services. The policy also reflects Resolution 21-30 in terms of delegating authority to the town manager, in terms of approving, executing, and terminating contracts, as well as the disposal of town property, and that goes up to varying dollar amounts. Goes up to $30,000 in terms of disposal of town property, and in terms of approving contracts, that also varies depending upon the dollar amounts. And Heather's going to take it away in terms of how the purchasing policy helps with compliance.
So the goal of this policy is to give structure to the town of Spencer's procurement methods and to set guidelines for the town's departments to comply with legal and ethical requirements of public procurement. And we want to ensure impartial and equal treatment is granted to all who conduct business with the town, and to receive maximum value for the money spent. So some of the details within this policy are: purchase orders are required for purchases over $250, and that hasn't changed. It's just something that the town has been doing, so that part hasn't changed. Purchases between $250 and $499. We still have to have a purchase order for that, but those will be approved and signed by me. And those that are above $500 will be approved and signed by me and Peter together. Contracts for purchases exceeding $30,000 are guided by the North Carolina statutory requirements. And those purchases from $30,000 to $89,999 require at least one and preferably two informal bids. So the form of these bids, they're not limited by the statute. They can be by phone, fax, email, or by quote. And the Board of Aldermen, the town of Spencer has delegated authority, like Brian said, to the town manager to approve those that do not exceed $40,000. Contracts exceeding $90,000 are formally advertised in the newspaper. Those are our formal bids, preferably with like two or more bids, and those bids require your approval. So for the construction and repair, there's two things that kind of stand out in that, and that is a performance and payment bond is required for every contract exceeding $50,000 that is awarded as a part of a project costing over $300,000. And contracts exceeding $300,000 require a 5% bid bond for all bidders. So, and having these policies in place and in writing and approved by the board ensures that we as the town staff are responsible keepers of the town's purchases and finances.
All right. So move on to the procurement card policy. The purpose of the procurement card policy is meant to help the town reduce administration time and simplify the overall purchasing process across departments. One of the main features of this policy is the application process, wherein each department head determines which employee or employees should be issued a procurement card. Then these card holders agree to the terms and policy found in the cardholder agreement, which is also located in the procurement card policy. The policy also discusses purchasing limits. These are dictated by the aforementioned purchasing policy as well as the finance officer. And then it also covers billing and remittance procedures, setting forth the proper procedures for reconciliation of each statement monthly with the finance department. It also covers procedures for any discrepancies that may occur in the statements. And then there's also a nifty FAQ section for quick access to most frequently asked questions that may pop up in using the procurement cards. And then moving on to travel, the purpose of this policy is to provide uniform guidelines for the town's travel process. This policy ensures that approved town travel by employees is compliant with all relevant statutory requirements and at the best possible value for the town. Some of the main elements of this policy include varying levels of authorization for travel based on the cost of travel, and that goes all the way up from department head to approval by the town manager based on the estimated value of the travel. There's different thresholds for that. And then it also lays out the requirements for meals, lodging, and transportation, basically what circumstances the town would pay for each of those. And that's based on length of trip, total cost, and location of travel. And the reimbursement rates are drawn from the rates set by the Office of State Budget and Management, as well as the IRS. And the policy also includes a process for the overall reimbursement, as well as what receipts are required for reimbursement. And that's the end of it.
All right. Thank you all very, very much. A lot of work has gone into this, much needed policy. With that, we'll open up the floor for questions from the board.
Heather, typically in your monthly reports that we get, there's a line for credit card.
Yes.
Would this procurement card do away with that, or is that still part of the process?
That's still part of the process. The line that you see on those reports is basically our credit card purchases and the way we the way we encumber those purchases and pay the credit card from there. So the line that you see there are our purchases on the credit card for the month. Does that make sense of what that line is?
And then they get transferred to
Yes,
whatever the
and
department.
once the general ledger entry is made, that's whenever we move it from that line item to the expense and the budgeted line items.
Right. The other question I had, the travel allowances, travel expenses, that sort of thing, does that have anything to do with the police department and the employees who use their vehicles? Use of vehicles, is that in this or not?
The use of the police vehicles for personal use or for travel or
The take-home
the
vehicle
take-home?
policy, yeah.
I think it's meant mostly for travel outside of town limits is
Right.
what this covers in the policy.
I could jump in.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
this is separate from the use of the take-home vehicle. So this is for authorizing travel to conduct town business elsewhere, or go to training, etc.
Okay.
So the use of a town vehicle has some elements within this, but the general take-home vehicle policy is not part of this.
Part of this, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, board, if that is the case, is there a motion to approve this new, this resolution for the new procurement policy?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept resolution 24-03 town purchasing policy.
There's a motion by Mr. Miller. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved. Again, thank you all
Thank
very,
you.
very
Thank
much
you.
for the great, good work on that.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on our list are our departmental reports, and we will begin with our planning department report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, before I give you my actual department report, the Hawkins Meadows annexation process is working through various statutory requirements. Last night, the planning board heard a presentation and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the annexation, including our new board member who actually lives in Hawkinstown. It was unanimous. In your February meetings, we will take a few more steps. The clerk will be asked to study the sufficiency of the petition. She will report back to you, and you will set a date for a public hearing. That public hearing right now we think will be at your pre-agenda meeting in March. So the newspaper ads will go out to advertise that so that everybody will know that that's when we will have that presentation. Per your suggestion, I have worked up a presentation that not only talks about the annexation, but explains a lot of the confusion that surrounds the ETJ area as compared to the municipal limits of the town and what services are provided by who. That will be presented at that public hearing time. So I just want to let you know what those dates would be. Those are subject to change based on going through these procedures. Right now, we're waiting on Salisbury to approve the annexation agreement, which they have said they will do at their meeting on the 16th. So that has to happen before we can do the other steps. So I just want to let you know that. And you have a copy of my monthly report for the month of December. I'll be glad to answer any questions about that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blunt. Any questions from the board?
What's the square footage of the small toy factory?
It was very small. It was for a very jolly young man with a big belly, but he was a little fellow that fits down his chimneys. So I had no problem approving that request.
Any other questions?
Mr. Blunt, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I got a comment from one of my neighbors today. On Pinecroft Avenue, I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I have.
Something needs to be done before they finalize the construction on that house, because like she said, that I think they removed the drain on that thing, or the catch basin, as far as I know.
I actually drove by after I got that video and looked at that. They have opened a ditch where they put in the new water meter and ran the water line to the house.
Yeah.
In doing so, that became the lowest part. It's actually below the catch basin elevation. So all that water that you saw coming down the side of the lot was running into that ditch instead of running into the catch basin.
Right.
Catch basin's still there. The brickwork underneath the catch basin, what was removed was a concrete top that's basically there to keep people from getting down into it, keep kids out of it. That's not to say that that will fix the problem. They need to grade it better so that it flows to that point. They need to obviously seed the property and stop the mud flowing. But there's a lot of water that flows down through that property that's not created on that property. It's created uphill of that property.
It's created from actually Oakdale Baptist Church.
Yeah, there's a lot of area that feeds into that. At the point where we were issuing a zoning permit for that property, we recognized that it was a drainage. The original plan had the house built in the drainage gully, and we required them to push it back and over to the side. And as you saw in the video, the water's flowing where it's supposed to flow. It's just flowing too fast, and it's picking up mud instead of running over a grassed area. I sent an email to the contractor asking him to get that fixed.
Okay, good, because I know Mary Powell is very much concerned about it because she didn't like the idea of that house being put in that little designated area.
Well, it's a half-acre lot, so it's not a little teeny
I know,
lot,
but it's not a very desirable lot for them.
And hopefully once they get it grassed and get it reshaped so that that gully is doing what its job. The only thing I will say, though, is that the pipe under the street may be too small. And at some point after we've done our townwide study, one of the recommendations might be to increase that pipe size to allow that water to flow out more quickly.
What size is that pipe? Do you know?
Looking at it from the top down, I would guess it's a 12 or 15-inch pipe. It's not a big one.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for doing that.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
you doing that.
We also, just as a side note, as I was riding around, I went by all the current construction sites that we've issued zoning permits on that are under active construction. The Meadow Avenue one is where they're putting in curb and gutter and drains. And obviously it's a mess because of the amount of water that fell. But it was interesting to see that the water flowed where it was supposed to flow. It followed the curb and gutter down to the lower end there on Hudson. So that was good to see that that's working out the way it was planned. The houses on Whitehead seem to all have the new channel that they put in was full of water and it was flowing where it was supposed to go. Right. Obviously, all of them were muddy because none of them have been seeded at this point.
How many houses is going on Meadows? On that Meadows Street?
6.
6.
Well, one of them's on Hudson, so
yeah.
5 on Meadow.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Blunt.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that there's standing water in front of those houses over in Clyde's Corner.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that is, I believe that that developer opted not to put in sidewalks.
He paid the town.
And paid the town
I think
instead in lieu of.
Yeah.
So is that going to be a problem there? What does he need to do about the standing water in those places?
I haven't been out there during the storm. I'll be glad to look at it, but that's actually an NCDOT road. So they would have to decide if the ditches needed to be enlarged or something like that. It sort of sits in a flat spot. Mm-hmm. So obviously it takes a while for the water to drain as opposed to more steeply sloped that runs off very quickly. But I'll be glad to run out there and take a look at it and see if we can suggest any solutions. And as you're aware, there is no solution to getting the mailing addresses to match up with the GIS addresses, short of finding another post office. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Blunt.
you.
All right, we'll invite Chief File forward for our code enforcement and then police department report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board.
Good evening.
Yes, Sergeant Everett's monthly code enforcement report that he completes here. looks like there were 410 cases year to date, so that basically encompasses a majority of 2023, with a little bit that will have not been captured in this report. So it'll be slightly over that when all that is rounded up for 23, but somewhere north of 400 cases. So a fairly busy year, even though we had those few months that we did not have the code enforcement officer in-house. We are working towards that currently. We are bringing on the part-time individual that we spoke about. He actually starts this coming Monday. So that will be able to give us a little bit of additional relief in-house on our own side. So we'll be able to kind of direct him to take care of any hotspot issues that pop up. And then we do, as of today, I believe we have 4 applicants for the open code enforcement position. So in the next few weeks, we'll begin reviewing those applicants and running them through a process. But I will try to answer any questions you may have about code enforcement this month.
All right, board, any questions? All right, thank you for that. We'll switch to the police department report.
Perfect. One I like talking about. So we made a conditional offer to our last open position today. So once we get through a background process on that individual, that will put us back full staff. That is a lateral applicant. So provided everything goes good on the background and we're able to bring that individual on, it will be a little bit of a reduced training on our side, not a lot. The individual has just under 3 years of experience, so they will pretty much go through our full in-house training, but obviously BLET has been completed, which is significant savings to keep us from sending somebody back to school. So we're looking forward to that. Our goal is to have the department fully staffed before summertime hits, when call volume is going to kick up more than what it already is. Looking at the monthly report here, we were just under 2,100 events, which is a little over 100 more than the prior month. So we anticipate seeing that continue to grow. Obviously, with additional growth coming in the area, we already know that number will most likely land somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 by the end of this calendar year. So we're trying to go ahead and build the staff up and be ready for what we anticipate coming. There again, a lot of this is proactive work, but with additional people coming to the community, additional building, obviously the reactive part is going to go up, whether it's simply calls for service for an alarm or additional traffic issues and whatnot. So we see that number growing probably by 30% this year would be a pretty safe estimate of where we're going to sit at. But everybody's doing really good. The officers doing a really good job, and they're definitely being proactive. So we're happy to see that. If you take note, I know everybody always wants to look at the shots fired because that's always been the big thing. It was 1 for this month. Fortunately for that one, it was juveniles with a BB gun, and they ran from us, and we chased them, and we caught them. So juvenile court will be dealing with that one. So it wasn't an actual gun, but it was called in that way. So they did shoot some windows out with it. So some parents that aren't real happy with their juveniles, and some juvenile court individuals that are going to have to deal with 3 of them now. So, but another month of no actual shots fired. So, and I really do credit the guys for all the proactive work they're doing. Obviously, the ACE team is not officially up and going until we get this final patrol position backfilled. However, they are out there working. So if you will notice, you probably have seen more blue lights, and I can assure you that there are a ton of guns and narcotics that have been seized in the last 2 months since they started being a little more proactive on that as they've had time. So they are doing a wonderful job, and we definitely appreciate your support on that team. So, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you, Chief. Board, any questions?
No, we haven't talked about it in a while, but just looking at the report, this reminds me, how is the out by the river park and across the river, how's that? I know it was kind of rough for a while in terms of vagrancy, et cetera. How's that been recently?
Pretty good, actually. I know there's been some problems on the Davidson County side. One of our guys actually caught somebody over there that was using narcotics. So they, we've got a mutual aid with Davidson County now, so they're able to detain and then just hold them there, and then they'll hand it off to a Davidson County deputy. So we've got a good working relationship with the sheriff's office over there now. So we're still checking over there. We may not be riding the parking lot as much anymore. It seems nails were dumped out. We don't know if it was intentional or accidental. But we had about 8 flat tires within a month. So that's a costly thing. So we are still checking it. We may not be sitting in the parking lot as much, but we are still riding by and hitting it with the spotlight. And our actual parked area we're going through, but we're not driving back through that back parcel quite as much anymore, just to try and protect the vehicles on that. But they're still going out there well over 100 times a month.
All right, board, other questions? All right,
All
thank
right.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is our fire department report, Chief Lanning.
Keith gets a gold star for his boots tonight.
Do what?
You get a gold star for your boots tonight.
I appreciate it.
You been
swimming
swimming
today?
Busy
Time to
day.
come here, it was the only pair of dry boots that I had. So, got my prepared report before you. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. The only thing I did want to point out that call volume this year went up another 23%. Equates for a total of 94% since the day I took over as fire chief. So it's definitely growing. Then obviously we're still short. We're still begging for staff and trying to hire, and it's few and far between. Unfortunately, you may hire one or two, and it seems like one or two leaves. So
Are they leaving because of money?
no, it's honestly been a mutual decision. Most of the time, it's because they're only working one day a month. We're not putting any availability in at all. So, the last one that left kind of just chose to leave, chose to get out of the fire service altogether. So chose to go back and be a gymnast instructor. She left us for that.
And one thing I may add at this point is, this is a conversation we've had over some length of time. We're not to start presenting a budget for next year before it's time, but that's going to be and in line with I think the direction and goals of this board. That's going to be a priority coming in the next fiscal year. But we are at the same time strategizing how we might be able to present some options to y'all in the coming month or so about how we might get a jump start on that. And it would explain some short-term issues and long-term issues with that, or considerations. But it's certainly something we're continuing to work on.
When we talked to EMS folks about some service out here for Winterfest,
Yes, ma'am.
we pulled in some outside folks because your guys didn't have the availability. Are most of your part-time people working at other places as well?
Every one of my employees, including myself, has a part-time job. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
So it's not so much money as it is warm bodies.
Well, yes and no. The negative to part-time work in this county is we're all pulling from the same pool of people.
Right.
There's only so many people that are certified. There's only so many people that are even willing, that are firemen, to work a part-time fire job. Most of them do something completely different, so they don't experience burnout. The flip side of that is our staff will cover any event. We just have to know about it. We have to know when. Like, we require our availability the month before. That way they know their full-time schedules. Some of our guys have 3-4 part-time jobs. So if they give us their availability the 10th of the month prior, that gives them their schedule by the 15th of the month prior. And so it kind of meshes with their other schedules. So we try to be proactive in that. That way we really are getting their first pick of, hey, we want to work. Money's always going to be a concern.
Yeah.
We raised our part-time rate to 15. The next department raised theirs to 17. And the unfortunate part, I don't think it has anything to do with morale or leadership, but it's a part-time job. It's a supplemental income, and they will jump ship for $1 to $2.
Yeah.
So I think, as a town, the best thing we can work towards offering are full-time positions with benefits, that aren't, and I think, we've been talking about an evolution of fire departments from volunteer to part-time, and now what we're seeing is really that evolution is leading from part-time to full-time. We just got to find a way to keep up with the market.
Yeah, I didn't mean that as any kind of a criticism on your department,
Sure, yes,
in that we needed to find people from outside. But I was just wondering if all of your people are working somewhere else as well.
They are, yes, ma'am, from various counties. One guy drives from Greensboro, so one guy actually works full time for Merle's Inlet now. and still drives back 4 shifts a month to work for us. So
And I would
I'll give it
suggest
to him as a commitment.
you could ask a firefighter in Charlotte and you would get the same answer,
Absolutely.
right? I think it has to do a lot with the way the schedules work and just the kind of the nature of the profession.
It is, and like the mayor said, I'm understanding this is new for us to be a career fire department. You know, PD has been established. Our call volume, besides from the city of Salisbury, we are the busiest municipality in the county, but we're also the most understaffed and lowest staffed. But on the flip side of that, they've had career departments for longer than we have. So, absolutely. Any other questions?
Got one, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we ever looked into sign-on bonuses or other type of bonuses to keep? I know that teaching is doing that now in a lot of places, but you usually have to sign a commitment to stay at
Yeah.
least.
It's became very popular in the fire service, but again, the negative to that is it's historically full-time positions.
Okay.
We could absolutely do it. We just need the positions first.
So board, you know, I think Peter said it as we start getting into budgeting and start thinking about how that budget looks for next year. One of the things I know is we've explored the SAFER grant. We've not been successful with that the past 2 years. We are working with some folks in our legislative delegation to try and get a little more clarity on that, potentially even have some help in Washington to overhaul that program through FEMA. But that's maybe a long-term fix. The short-term fix is heading into budgeting. We need to be working towards additional full-time positions. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Mr. Taylor, Public Works. It's been a busy day.
It's been an exciting day, that's for sure. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Good evening.
Our regular service, they're on schedule. Trash has been running a little later than normal, but we're still without our second truck. So still having engine issues with it. Finally got an estimate today to get that corrected. Hopefully have it back in service in the next week or so, and that'll kind of lighten their load just a little bit. But if nothing else, it's actually put it in perspective of what we can get done with that one truck. We still have some problem areas that we have to work on, but we're getting better at it. Drivers are getting faster. People are listening a little bit better and putting their cans where they're supposed to. So it's moving along. Just a reminder, the leak back with the weather this week, it will run next week. We'll have it at least next week. So I know the weather this week has not been the best. Next Monday, we will be off for Martin Luther King holiday. So we will be 1 day late again next week for trash service. I included in your packet the trash service for the year of the holidays. We'll make sure we get that on the website, and that seems to help out with any confusion with people. They can look on the website. Plus, we'll include it in the newsletter, of course, and they'll have it where they can put it on their fridge and kind of keep up with that. I mentioned earlier the engine issue. We did get that, and we'll get it taken care of. We have been in touch with our engineers on the Chicken Springs Dam. We did get an estimate back, so we're looking into it and making sure it's exactly what we need to provide to DEQ, and make sure that they have everything they need to get to their time frame, so we don't, stay out of the fine stage. Everybody's in agreement that we're okay, even DEQ when we had our meeting. So as long as we live up to our side of the bargain, then we'll be fine. It took a hit today. I won't say the dam did, but the pond did. And we had it all the way down, and it is up to the brim. So we'll constantly keep a monitor on it and keep everything going as the way it's supposed to. CCAP update, they did receive our application. So it is there, has been for about 15 days. They said it could take up to 60. Hopefully that'll be fast tracked a little bit and we can get it. We have sent our payment with it. As soon as I get that contract, get the permits, and then we can look at contractors and get that taken care of. Today's storm, we fared fairly well. I can't complain really. We did have one tree down that we know of, right in front of the elementary school, took out a power line. So I don't think it lost any power. I think it just bridged across the top of it. 17th Street, of course, flooded, substantially flooded. And its catch basins are open, but then when it starts running from the woods, then it's an instantaneous, it'll suck them shut. And so we did okay. Charles Street did go over, didn't last very long. And 3rd and 7th, they're approaching the bridge, which is where you're getting the flash flood warnings. We're getting the water from the west.
They'll be over tonight.
It will be over tonight. So I have a feeling DOT, they're running crazy. And we'll keep an eye on it. I know the police will and the fire will, and we've all been working today to try to keep the streets open. But DOT, they're busy, so we'll keep an eye on those and we'll block them off if necessary. We'll just take care of it. So I will answer any questions that you may have.
Joel, according to Duke Energy, there are 720 homes without power in around my area.
Did you lose power today?
Yes.
You did. Okay, it'll be that tree. That's what's causing it. So I know that they were en route. Now ETA.
Well, I'll know when I go home
We'll
because
go
all
home
the lights will
see
be
if the
on in
lights
the
are on.
house.
That's right. That's it. Okay, very good. Thank you,
Mr. Miller.
The question about Second Street, under the pipe underneath the
Mm-hmm.
street. Well, how do we stand on that?
We do have an estimate to complete that project. I've submitted for others from other agencies, but we haven't received anything else from them.
So you're waiting for a complimentary bid or something?
Oh, we'll definitely have to have a complimentary bid comparing what the price the first one came in as.
Okay. How are we gonna pay for that? Just for information.
That's the next question.
How about that?
It's likely going to need to be a budget item for next year.
It will probably be a budget item for next year.
Okay.
We put some in, but when we found out the extent of the issues,
Yes.
it was not near enough. So it may be that we can get it in the process of beginning this year,
Right.
but we'll have to complete it in the next year with a budget. Yes, sir.
I have another question. I've been on the board for 4 years now, and we've been talking about 17th Street.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about it, and I know government works real slow.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't fussing at you.
Okay.
But I understand what Cindy Sapert is working with some agency to help us to redirect the piping down to bottom near the dam. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you're saying I thought she took another job or something.
She did. She did. Well, I haven't been handed off to another gentleman yet, but I'm in the process of being it's North Carolina Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
It's their engineers who are heading up the CCAP. That's who does it. Chris Sloop was the other gentleman through the county that I deal with.
Okay.
So I'll be dealing with both of those.
Okay. So basically, is that work being paid for by other funds?
Yes, that's being paid for with the CCAP.
It's a grant.
That's a grant.
It's a grant.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we've been talking about that for a long time.
Mhm.
Is the grant gonna run out?
No, we're good at least through the end of June. I know that because we got an extension last year. So we're good through the end of June.
So we're still working with somebody other than Cindy Sapert.
Well, that's what I've been talking about, the permit.
I know.
Mhm.
I understand.
I've
what
submitted
you're
the
saying.
permit to DEQ. Until they give me the permits, I can't secure a
And the
contract.
permits come from.
They'll be coming from the North Carolina. It's actually North Carolina Department of Water Resources. That's
Okay.
where they come from.
Is that a problem with it getting those?
No,
No,
just
it's
time
slow.
frame.
They don't have anybody that works there.
I
Yeah,
understand.
it's just slow.
I've tried to get a little
So
background.
to give you an example for a permit on a project I was working on for work, it took 3 months just to get them to review plans.
Okay, all right. So the next question I have about this project is that we were funding money to put vegetation in people's backyards and all that. How's that stand?
It's still in the budget. As far as it's budgeted, so as soon as the project completes, and then we'll add that on top.
It's part of the CCAP project.
It's part of the CCAP project.
So we've got 2 projects. We've
Okay.
got the lower part of 17th
I
Street.
understand that.
That's CCAP. And
Okay.
that's basically benching back the existing
drain,
stream bed and, yeah.
But we were still trying to get everybody to commit to that.
Correct, and so we
It's
have
already
money.
done.
It's
Yes.
already finished.
Yes, that part has been committed. They've committed. That's how I had to have all the
The
signatures
plantings
to
have not
apply for the
happened. They'll happen
permits.
once the project gets completed, but we've got all the things signed and everybody has agreed.
Okay.
And that was part of what took so long.
Yeah, that was the whole.
Was
up.
to
I
get-
understand that. I
Yeah.
couldn't understand why people would commit to this, but
Yeah.
that's not my, that's not.
We had to get Steve Bunt involved. He made
Well,
it happen.
that answers the question
Yeah.
right there.
He made it happen. That's for sure.
He went out and tracked
All
them
right.
down,
So
actually.
the big question now is with the other piece of it, with the new piping,
Okay, that was my third question. Was
that's a separate project.
Right.
We have a consultant, Hayes and Sawyer, working on that one. That's the one we have the state grant funding for the planning, the design, and then the construction. And so that's in design right now. And so the big question is going to be, is that part going to get done before the CCAP project? And it
Well,
might.
and
might.
you would think that CPAC would have to come first because that's where it's all going to go to anyway.
Yeah. But basically, there's the likelihood is CCAP will be happening. This other will go out to bid and then follow shortly behind that.
All right, roughly speaking, since I'm trying to go back to the mayor, what kind of time period are we talking about putting out bids for this project?
Well, then that's a question for Peter, what
Okay.
Hazen's schedule for design is.
The state grant is it's extended. I mean, I think this is I don't have the schedule right in my mind, but it was going to extend over beyond this fiscal year that we were going to be working on that. So and I believe the last step that we had was there was a technical document that was submitted on the construction project to the state, and I don't know that we have heard back from them on that. The other part of this whole grant project, it was split into two grants. There was a $400,000 planning grant for an overall stormwater management plan and system inventory. That was the first piece we got kicked off with, and we submitted some information to the state. They, within a few months, approved what was submitted, and we were able to start. And that was going to be an 18-month process for the planning grant to cover the whole town. This other piece was we submitted this technical document, and I don't know that we've heard back about it. So we're kind of waiting on the state with that other piece to approve what has been submitted before everything else can proceed.
Hazen submitted that on our behalf.
Mm-hmm.
Can you push on them to follow back up with the state?
Mm-hmm.
I know just from work experience that it's one of those things you've got to check in with the state about every week. Keep it on the radar. So if they can help with that, that'd be good.
My only comment is I will try to look after the citizens on 17th Street because I think they need some. No offense, it's like I said, we've been talking about CPAC for 4 years since I've been on this. And we still have done nothing. And I'd like to see some movement on it.
Understood.
All right, anything else?
No, we got information handed to us about the dam project. Is that something we are going to discuss?
Yeah, so that would be, well, you want to discuss?
I mean, is that?
Sure. Yeah, well, we can. Before Joel sits down, we can take care of that. So yes, to follow up on what Joel was saying earlier about the Chicken Springs Dam and our work to respond to the state's notice that was provided, we've received a proposal from the same consultant, Hazen, to meet some of the requirements that were outlined in the state's letter, including proceeding with some engineering to remediate the dam, which could have a variety of alternatives at this point. Also, preparation of an emergency action plan. And then another main item on there is some funding assistance tasks. In other words, there are some federal grant dollars out there specifically for this sort of thing to rehabilitate high hazard dams. And our understanding is the state intends to submit an application to the federal grant which they've typically been successful in receiving. And what we've been asked to do is we can ask the state to be part of their application, in other words. So we have a deadline of the end of this month to submit that to the state so they could then in turn meet the overall grant deadline. So we've received this task order to the tune of about $55,000 to cover all of those things. Again, some of that is for seeking grant funding that would help with our solution to the tune of 65% of the solution would be engineering and construction would be covered with that grant if we were successful. And so we are interested in seeking some financial assistance from a friend of the town who may be interested in working with us on that. And so that's what we were going to talk about tonight was, you know, your comfort level with us proceeding in that direction, and then submitting, you know, should we be successful being able to submit that request for the grant.
Yeah, and that application for the grant's due the end of this month.
Yes.
When is the deadline for us to finish, to complete what they're asking? Is there a deadline?
The main deadline, I believe, is by the end of the month for the
This month.
Yeah, for certain items, not for the total project.
Okay.
Does that make sense? There's timelines for different things.
Okay.
The main upfronts were like the EAP, which is the Emergency Action Plan, cleaning off the dam, getting the water down as low as we could possibly do. And then we have to get their approval before we can do any construction on the dam, which would be filling that gully or addressing the bowl or any those type, or removing any vegetation over, I believe it's 8 inches, because of the root structure. We can't take any trees down. So there are some things that need to be done, but they have to approve whether we can do that or not. And they know that our timeline is limited, and hence the meeting we had with DEQ. And they were okay with the outline that Hazen had put in front of them, that we were okay with. As long as they're seeing progress, they're not going to, you know, instill fines upon us, as long as we're showing progress. The EAP was the main thing. As long as it's in by the end of the month, then they're okay with that. And I think Hazen's right on board as far as getting that done. And then, of course, the grant funding is a side note. You know, we have to get that in just to see if we can actually do the project once they engineer it and we figure out how we're wanting to do it.
It also, another question. I understand that pond, as we call it, is half owned by the city and half owned by the people next door.
Correct.
Do we have approval from them to do all this work?
Yes, Ms. Williford's fine with any work that we need to do. But there again, you know, they're receiving the benefit from it as well. You know, we're doing the work and they're getting the benefit. So there are some other talks about that issue.
So let me ask you this. Long-term solution though, have we settled on a long-term solution?
Not totally. I mean, my recommendation is to get it off the high hazard list, period.
Right.
Now, there are different ways to do that. And I think Hazen looks at several different ones. But we still want to keep a pool. We have a dock. We have a, you know, it has to float on something. So that's the stipulation we have, you know, but they can reduce the amount of water they're impounding and take us off the high, you know, the list. So ultimately we want to get off that list. And that way we don't have routine inspections. All of that part goes away. You know, we just do in-house stuff from then on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think long-term from a programmatic perspective of, you know, with the assets we have with Standback Forest, with the Carter House now, kind of long-term, you know, I know it's an asset to be able to have that pond. It's also a maintenance issue. But I would just encourage all of us to look really, really hard before we settle on a path forward to actually, you know, if we're going to reduce the pool, right, make sure that that's in the best interest of the town's long-term recreational plans too. Especially if we're seeking federal funding, it may make sense to get the federal funding to be able to actually keep it as a full-blown pond.
Right.
And it was a little more hassle from an inspection standpoint and a maintenance standpoint and everything like that. But if the money's available, it really is an asset. A lot of people in town love being able to have that water there.
I agree. But it's a juggling act.
It is.
It's a juggling act. And I say that for strictly one reason. To keep it a high hazard, then by high hazard, now you're looking at a different yearly storm number.
Right.
So by doing that, now the water level has to be dropped. So, if we keep it high hazard, and I think that's one of the things that Hazen's looking at, if we keep it at the rate it is now as a high hazard, and the drainage and the siphons and everything we have to put into this to make it appropriate, are we going to have any water left? Right. Because of the depth of the pond. So there's a lot of, can we move the dam forward, still keep the pond as is, but it be smaller, get off the high hazard? That's all the stipulations that we're looking at, and see if what we can come out with the best.
There's a line item on this in this thing that totals up to the $55,000. That's funding assistance of $9,500. Is that federal funding, or is
That's
that
grant writing?
That's grant money.
That's grant writing.
Federal funding.
Grant
Right. We will be paying them the $95 to write the grant.
to write
for
the
us.
grant,
Just
okay.
like they did for
Okay.
us to get the state funding for the 17th Street
Right.
project and the
Yeah.
inventory plan.
Okay, so that's we have to come up with 35% of the 55,000. Is that
No. It would be if we are successful with federal grant, we would have to come up with the match for whatever the grant is.
whatever the grant amount is?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So as a comparison, when we received the grant that we're currently working through to the tune of $2 million, we used the consultant at a cost of about $10,000 or so for the purpose of writing the grant and going through all that process. So, and that investment yielded us a $2 million grant. So
Right.
that's the same kind of hope we would have with this kind of process.
Other questions?
I wanted to piggyback Joel off of the 17th Street issues, as Mr. Miller was stating. But the gentlemen that have been out there the past week or two, I believe they were doing some surveying, things of that nature, and residents also have received letters from the town to inform them that people would be meandering through their yards, and that way they have some clarity. So, what is the progress with that?
As far as I know, the majority of the surveying is done.
And that was for the Hazen portion.
Correct. That's for
part,
the
okay.
the upper portion, the grant funded part.
Okay.
I think they're pretty much done. Now they may have to come out and do some, smaller areas or something that they need some further information. But to my knowledge, I think they're through with the survey.
See, the way that'll work is they'll develop their survey, they'll get that to the engineers.
Okay.
And the engineers will look at it, and if there's anything they feel like they missed, they'll send them back out to get that. But that's a matter of probably a day back out to get some of that additional information.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional question. You're talking about water. This is probably maybe not the right place, but we're here.
It's not a shortage of water, is it?
No. We have plenty of water.
Today we do.
Today, yeah. Maybe not tomorrow, but I know we talked earlier in maybe the last meeting. Steve mentioned the creek clearing grant and how there was a little bit left, and all this made me think about, and I probably should have mentioned it earlier, but I know you brought up the creek that runs between Newton and First Street.
Yeah.
And all the rains recently, I just noticed being out that way that there's a tree that's fallen between properties over the creek, and it's knocked out a bridge that used to be there, et cetera. And what it does is it's created a great dam. I mean, it's fantastic, but the water level is probably 8 feet. And I saw it today. I saw it last week. Saw it when we had the deluge before Christmas. I don't know if that's our responsibility as a town or not. I don't know. I just bring it up because we talked about the creek clearing.
Sure.
We talked about that creek, and now we're talking about water issues. I mean, it's significant. Where it's backing up in people's, yards and all kind of stuff.
One thing that I would suggest when you're through with Joel, we actually have
Not through with you.
when Joel's done with his report, we have Joe Morris available on Zoom, and he was going to be giving an update. There he is. There he is.
Thank you.
He was going to be giving an update on that and a few other topics whenever y'all were ready.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Now, we've got a gentleman, and I'll speak up for Joe. We had a gentleman to come and look at that specific creek because of some of the funding that was left over, and he was supposed to come this morning. That, of course, did not happen. So I don't know why. You know, he didn't want to come, but no. So I'll have him scheduled later on in the week, and we're going to look at that and get a price and get it back to Joe, so to make sure that we fall into that and use that money to take care of that problem. But Joe will fill you in a little bit more on that. Okay.
All right. Saved by the Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Morris, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure to be with you from stormy Raleigh this evening. So glad to be here. Just following up on that conversation, we did identify a log jam in behind North Rowan High School and what is called Walton Creek, which is a tributary to the Yadkin River, or the Grants Creek, and then the Yadkin River. And so we're getting those prices worked out, and once we identify the cost for removal of the log jam, we'll submit a scope of work revision to the grant administrators and see if we might be able to proceed with getting at least that portion of the creek cleaned out. One of the benefits of being able to work in that North Rowan High School area is that we would be able to work with Rowan Salisbury schools to gain access to the log jam and maybe an adjacent property owner as well. But so we're proceeding with that. So does anyone have any more questions about the stream restoration project?
Joe, is this? I'm assuming this would be on the North Rowan, the high school. You know, that whole complex of schools on that side of Whitehead. It's not going to roll over on the Newton Street side and First Street side of Whitehead. Is that right?
So I don't know the answer to that. The log jam that's next to Oakwood Avenue, I think is the name of the street there on the side where the buses.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, is that Oakwood? Is a pretty significant log jam, and we really don't know what the cost is going to be to remove that. And once we have sort of a order of magnitude understanding of what the cost might be to get that material out, we might be able to pursue other parts of those tributaries. We have $19,000 left. We spent almost $260,000 for the work that we've done, and so I just don't have a really good estimate of what it's going to cost to finish it up. And so that was a very long way of saying, if we can get the log jam cleaned up, we may be able to go beyond that. And we have a little bit of, we're not under any kind of a timeline with the state. We have until December of next year to expend the funds. And so if we do it incrementally over the next, few weeks and months until we're down to zero, then, that's the approach that we'll take. And so that's kind of where it stands now. But I just can't answer your question definitively at this moment.
Thanks, Joe. Any other questions?
Joe, I have something I saw today that Davidson County has joined Rowan County in taking a look at dredging in the river. Have you been involved with any of that?
No, I really haven't. I know that has been a conversation that has been, off and on for years, for a few years now. There are a lot of moving parts to it in terms of the federal energy relicense and settlement, and the lake being owned by what is now called Cube Hydro or Eagle Creek, I think is what they're called now. And Jay may actually have more of an update on that from the county's perspective. But I have not been involved in that particular effort.
All right.
Jay says don't ask him.
No, Andrew, I haven't heard. I mean, I know it's a concern about dredging certain areas of the lake. You've got some coves that are closing in, and you've got some other issues, but I don't know of anything definitive between Davidson County and Rowan County to actually.
There was I read it today from the newspaper, a piece in the dispatch that mentioned it. So I believe it is official.
Well, I better check to see if I still have a job. All right.
I did want to take a moment to address a couple of the things that were brought up, or at least one thing that was brought up at the last meeting, and there was some conversation about the timeline for the town park project and how that it might affect Winterfest next year. And I've sent a document to Mike Shue, and if Mike is in the room, I'm wondering if he can share that timeline. If not, I can just sort of wing it generally. Is that, Mike, are you going to be able to help us with that?
He nodded to me that he could.
Okay, so I'll wait for that to pop up on the screen, and then I'll get into it.
He said he could. He didn't say how quickly he could, though. Need to put his 3-minute timer on.
I mean, I could hold up the one that I had.
Oh, now we got it. Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. So this is the project schedule that was provided to us by Benish when we began this project. And when you look at this matrix, which may be at a scale that you can't really read too well in the room, we have actually gotten through 2023, and we're in January of 2024, and we're on schedule. And if you look at the colored bars that, sort of are assigned to the various tasks that are listed on the left side of the matrix, we are down to the provision of the construction documents. And I've talked with Jeff at Ashbaugh at Benish a couple of times within the last couple of weeks, and he says that everything is on time from the design standpoint. And looking at the schedule that we have there on the screen, it looks that the construction documents are going to be finished just any day now. We've talked about the end of January, and then having some time in February for permits and approval, and then initiating the bidding process. The bidding would take place over the month of March 2024 and award the contracts perhaps, and depending on the mobilization of the contractor, we could get started as soon as early April. I think it would likely be mid-April, but then there would be a 9-month window to do the construction. And so what we know from our experience with construction of parks that we've observed in our community, our neighbors in Salisbury, had an experience that was very different from what we're proposing. A much larger scale project with a lot of very unique, sort of one of a kind elements to it. And then they happen to have a pandemic in the middle of the construction process where their original timeline was estimated to be I think it was 18 months. And it ended up being over 3 years to get done. The thing I will say that is different about our project is that a lot of the supply chain issues that occurred during the pandemic have been mostly resolved. And our designers have learned from this lesson to propose and design using materials that are readily available. And so our pavilion, for example, will be built with steel I-beams and concrete and metal doors that you can buy and different products that are readily available that will not be custom to the extent that it will create delays in our project schedule. So having said that, if everything went beautifully, we could do, Winterfest on schedule, but I know that the Winterfest organizing folks are very concerned, and rightfully so. And they're having conversations about, maybe taking a different approach to it. And so we would need to work with them over the next few months to see that takes place. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Questions? All right. Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll move on now to our finance report.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
So the budget analysis and review revenue expenses in your packet. Do you guys have any questions about that?
Board, any questions on your finance report? Okay. No.
Just want to give you an update on our, we have made an offer to our office assistant position, and she's estimated to start on the 22nd.
Okay. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Nice. Thank you so much.
All right. And finally, our library report.
So Ms. McCraw had 2 events in December, Christmas themed, and I know that she is very busy scheduling for January. She's going to have Holocaust themed, I don't really want to use the word themed, but an event, an educational event about the Holocaust. And then for February, she will be doing something for Black History Month. So keep an eye out for those.
Okay. Board, any questions on the library report? All right. Move on to the town manager report. Mr. Franzese.
Thank you once again, Mayor and members of the board. You have my report before you. I did provide earlier today a bit of an update to the report, and we've talked about some of what that was. The other piece that I hope to discuss a little bit is another grant program that's become apparent within the last, yesterday actually, and it's related to cybersecurity. We talked earlier about the league's program and that and getting some cybersecurity assistance. You may recall that last year we did a free cybersecurity assessment provided by the North Carolina National Guard, and those folks are still in the process. They have provided their report to us, but we have scheduled a time at the end of this month to review it with them. But those same folks sent out a notification about a grant program from the North Carolina Department of Public Safety that would provide some funding to make improvements based on the outcomes of their assessment, which they're showing up to $200,000 available for a grant. I think the funding, the state has about, they're anticipating about $10 million. They have federal dollars combined with about 2.7 million of state funding to have a $13.5 million grant program, again with local awards up to 200,000. So that shows you that that'll spread it around quite a ways, and they are looking to have certain parameters about how they spread that around the state. But since this just came up, I wanted to make sure there weren't any issues with us also pursuing these funds. The more we can increase our cybersecurity posture by making targeted improvements to our network and other items, the better. We are small, but we're still vulnerable to the risks out there. So any assistance we can get to help us with that, in my opinion, would be beneficial. Okay.
Would this work in conjunction with the program through the League of Municipalities?
I think in some ways, in that what we plan to do is share our report from the National Guard to the League consultants to make sure that maybe what they analyze can, complement what's already been done and try to, or at least get a head start by taking some of the information that's already been gathered. So that part of it we've already talked about some, but I think that would be a goal, is if we can target these, if we're successful, and none of the funding is guaranteed yet, right? But if we're able to get funding from one or both programs, we would certainly work to be efficient with that and have complementary efforts.
All right. Board, any other questions on that? Okay. All right. The other item was our annual planning session.
Yes, and I did suggest a date or a couple of dates there, that thinking our typical pattern has been a Thursday evening followed by a Friday daytime event, and I've suggested that perhaps the evening of February 29th, we could spend our leap evening together, and then the following day, March 1st, might be a good target for us to aim for our event this year.
So I know for a fact that will not work for me. I will be out of town.
I am also leaving out of town.
Well,
so what I was going to ask, what about the following week? That's our monthly pre-agenda meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We do that Thursday night in conjunction with our pre-agenda meeting, and then the following Friday the 8th.
nothing's jumping out on my calendar. I see the mayor's roundtable is that morning.
Right. We can still do that and then make our way over to it on 9.
Yep. And staff in the room have any concerns with any of those dates?
What date is that?
We're talking about the 7th and 8th of March, the evening of the 7th after pre-agenda.
Evening of the 7th, and then all day on the 8th.
Mm-hmm. And I think the way we, and I believe this is the way the one in 2023 happened, is we had our pre-agenda meeting and whatever would go with it, and then we went into the rest of the evening.
Does that work?
Are we going to have the community involvement again like we have in the past?
Yeah, that would be what that.
Okay, so that would be the evening
of the 7th. Thursday.
Okay.
Right. Which is convenient in that it aligns with our pre-agenda meeting as well. Seems like that'll work. So we'll go ahead and set that then as the evening of the 7th, all day on the 8th. So if you'll block out that on your calendars. Okay. Anything else?
Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Questions for the manager? All right.
Trying to get those cogs started.
We will move on to comments from the mayor and board. And Ms. Sledge, we'll let you go last in case you think of the
Thank
question.
you.
Yeah, you're
That's
welcome.
helpful.
We'll start with Mr. Miller.
Okay, real quick. Saturday night, we had a awards banquet for the fire department. I'd like to thank Chief Lanning for extremely good banquet. Food was excellent. The people were excellent. I'd like to recognize. I'd like to thank all our firefighters as far as that goes. A special comment was Chief Lanning also invited all the past members of the Spencer Fire Department. I thought that was good taste. I know it went over real well with them, and I think that I really do appreciate what you did. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Sure. Ms. Moody.
I just wanted to thank all of our town employees. I know you've had a really long day. We appreciate you being here at this meeting, and I bet your feet hurt. So thank you so much.
Mr. Allen.
First, with the fire department banquet, Chief Lanning, I apologize. Our family apparently has resolved to catch every respiratory virus that is known to man this winter. We are well on our way. I think we're at 4. So maybe we can make it next year. But I hope it went well, and congratulations to your staff, and wish them the best. On a little bit different note, I just wanted to give a shout out. I think maybe we've recognized these folks before, maybe. But last night I took my boys out to Mustafa's place out past Hendricks. It's the first time they've ever tried Turkish food. It's fantastic. We're developing a bit of a cuisine here in Spencer. So it's a local business, nice guys. So if you haven't been out there yet, take an afternoon for lunch or a late or early supper and go out there. The food's great and service is fantastic. So just want to give a shout out to a local business.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Piggybacking on what Mr. House said, we also have a new bakery here in Spencer, and it's opened up right down here. I think it's Fleming Bakery. Fleming Street Bakery. Yep. And the food is wonderful. So if you haven't tried that, make sure you visit. They've got some really unusual things on their menu. And also, I wanted to just reiterate how excited everyone in Spencer is about the park. I'm getting lots of phone calls and comments about it, and people wanting to help in any way. So that's a good thing. It's going to be a beautiful thing to see.
All right, Mr. Muhammad.
All right, first of all, I want to thank the town staff for all the hard work and dedication that they've been doing in the past couple of days and what they're going to do in the future as well. But also thanks to the residents that have been coming out to the meetings and being involved. And want to give another warm welcome to Alderwoman Moody as well for being here. With that being said, I hope that everyone has a blessed week and weekend. And if there's any concerns that residents have, feel free to bring it to our attention or to the staff's attentions, and we'll try to address them to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Ms. Sledge.
I want to say thank you again to all the people who helped with Winterfest. Patty and I contacted a lot of people over the last few days through emails and texts and phone calls and what have you. And a number of them had planned to come tonight, but I'm sure because of the weather, they didn't make it out. So I do want to say that it takes a village to do this, and we had a village from here to China Grove and Charlotte, maybe even, and Lexington, Davidson County, and just lots and lots of people involved. So thank you for that. One question that had kind of run through my mind earlier with the gentleman, Mr. Martin was talking about fire protection in the Hawkinstown area. And it just occurred to me, if those townhouses property is annexed, would there be hydrants put out there? Would that be a part of it?
It's part of the development.
Part of the development?
Yeah.
So that might be a helpful thing for that whole area, you know, to be able to have that fire protection. I know that we've talked about it, but you know, it is a concern, and I hear you, Mr. Martin. And other than that, I think I just want to say thank you all. I look forward to the training that we're going to be attending next week, or this week. Not next week. This week. So thank you all for providing that. And I hope everybody has power when they get home tonight.
All right. We've heard from the board. I don't have any further comments. Everybody has covered everything.
Wow.
We've done it. Is there a need tonight to go into closed session? All right. Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Muhammad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor? All right. All opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you all.